Does BYU hiring Kevin Young change the trajectory of Big 12 basketball? I think it might. This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. Thanks for making this show your first listen every single day. Today, let's do a Q&A with Ben Criddle of ESPN 960 about the state of Big 12 basketball currently and how Kevin Young of BYU has altered that. The first point I want to make is that I'm at the Grand Canyon. Hey, everybody, taking in some beautiful views this week. We went from Albuquerque to Mesa with the Savannah Bananas and the Party Animals. And so in the meantime, I've been able to record podcasts here on the road, and we'll continue to get those out to you from the literal Grand Canyon. Second point I want to make. Big 12 basketball got better with the hiring of Kevin Young. And if you're a Texas Tech fan, if you're an Arizona fan or a Utah fan or a UCF fan, I think what you see now is a commitment for a school like BYU who doesn't have the basketball pedigree of a Houston, of an Arizona, the basketball pedigree of certainly a Kansas, or even a Baylor who's won a national championship now. What that school did is instead of going after this big alumni or a guy who played big-time college basketball or even a Johnny Dawkins who you've heard of, like a guy at UCF who's on the hot seat right now, they said, let's go get the best hire in America, not just from a culture fit standpoint, but from a basketball standpoint overall. I mean, this is one of the best offensive minds in the game in Kevin Young, who was the #1 assistant in the NBA. And BYU said, okay, great. We can not only work with that, we can win with that. And to me, what it says is when you, as a school in this conference, either do or do not compete, but find yourself in a spot where you must hire a new coach, the bar has been reset. Big 12 basketball was already good. Big 12 basketball was good without BYU. I did not think, transparently, that bringing BYU in would make a conference that had a strong Kansas State or a strong TCU, Kansas, a Baylor, even where Texas has been consistently in the NCAA tournament. I didn't think BYU, based on what they've done in the last decade, or based on what Mark Pope did there, would come in and make the waves they did. Not only did they found themselves in a tough spot where they've got to hire a new coach because the guy that had led them to a pretty solid finish in the Big 12 left for Kentucky. There are going to be much worse scenarios. If Dawkins gets fired at UCF, if tomorrow Wes Miller leaves Cincinnati or gets fired at Cincinnati, those are tougher jobs to hire for. But now, as a conference, we've already established it's the best basketball conference in America. The standard of hiring coaches is reset. The new school, the religious affiliated school, faith-based school in BYU, who is not known for pouring maximum resources into athletics. They do less with more. That's part of the culture there. Said, you know what? Let's do more with more. Now, everybody else is going to have to do the same. Ben Criddle and I talk about it. Ben gives some great questions here, and I try to put it all into context, including a bit about how Mark Pope was weird about leaving BYU. Let's listen in.
We're going to get into a segment with Locked On Cougars, Locked On Big 12. Drake Toll's on the line right now. Drake, how you living, man?
Ben, always a pleasure to talk Big 12, but I'll be honest with you, I'm cutting into my tennis time right now. So if this interview goes anything less than 20 minutes, we're not doing it correctly.
No, hey, I appreciate you, just allocating a little bit of time to us here at ESPN 960. So you got a very busy schedule as the Locked On Big 12 insider, as well as calling games for the Savannah Bananas. How are things going for you in your world right now?
Man, spectacular. We spent a stint in Durham this last weekend with the Durham Bulls at their athletic complex and had a 3-game series sellout with $30,000 on hand. And we're headed out west, kind of toward you guys. This weekend we'll be in Albuquerque, then in Mesa next weekend. Fresno and Sacramento also coming up. And in the meantime, we're going to rent a car and explore the Grand Canyon early next week. So my next 10 days are booked. I'll be away from the hostess city here in Savannah, but couldn't ask for anything better. Getting to travel the country and follow the Bananas and the Party Animals has been a blast.
Love it. I got to get your reaction to the news coming out of Provo here. I know you put together a stupendous podcast, and check it out on YouTube, Locked On Big 12. Nobody does it better than Drake Toll. This was a great hire for BYU. I want to get your outsider's perspective on this hire.
Well, Ben, the first thing that came to my mind was BYU is known as an athletic department for doing things that are not flashy because it fits the LDS faith and brand. And that's not a bad thing. I don't say that to knock what BYU is. There is a commitment to a faith as the premier flagship institution for one of the world's fastest growing faiths. And you got to stick to that. What that often means is you make a hire for a revenue sport that nobody's really heard of outside of Salt Lake City or the state of Utah. And in this case, as a Power 4 team and a school that wants to compete at the top level, it wasn't the high school coaches that some people were mentioning who are great high school coaches and probably would have been a fine fit. It was not Burgess. It was not another assistant or another head coach on the West Coast. It was the number one assistant in the NBA. I was floored that everyone was so on but off with the predictions, because the predictions look like your typical BYU football or basketball coaching list of guys who have been in Utah, lived in Utah. They're not flashy names on the outside, but they are on the inside because everybody knows them. They've spent time in Provo, whether it be at Utah Valley or BYU, and then bam, this hire from Tom Holmoe it was stunning to me that it wasn't just to go big or go home. It was go as big as you can possibly get. This guy was going to be an NBA head coach. And instead, he's the head coach of the BYU Cougars. It cannot be overstated that BYU put its big boy pants on and said, we're going to be a Power 4 school. We're going to merge the commitment to faith with the commitment to excellence in athletics and hire the best possible candidate. And it blew everybody's mind.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone saw this coming. Everyone was leaning Burgess. Everyone was leaning maybe Barrett Peary.
Yeah.
I think most were leaning Burgess. But Kevin Young, getting hired, look, I guess Brian, Tom got their guy, and they were willing to spend a pretty penny for it. $4.2 million to be exact, a 7-year deal worth $30 million. I think that may be the most surprising thing. I don't know what's more surprising, that BYU is spending $4.2 million, or that they got the highest paid NBA assistant in the National Basketball Association.
I'm going to flip it around. Ben, because what stuns me is not just, as you mentioned, the fact that it's an NBA assistant, but that price tag. That, again, it feels like the athletic department said, all right, we're ponying up. We're not getting left behind when the conversation is NIL and transfer portal. And can these schools afford to stay relevant? What is their footprint in college? BYU just said, look, here is what we can flash. What changed? Why? Why this price tag, and why now?
Yeah, I'm just floored. I'm excited. Can't wait to see what Kevin Young can do. Obviously, there's a lot that's going to need to happen going forward. What do you think the chances are for Kevin Young? We already lost to Ali Khalifa. He's committed to Louisville. I don't know about Richie Saunders, but if you can maybe retain 3/4 of your roster, your scholarship roster, I think that's the goal right now. I think you got to get Dallin Hall. You got to get Foose coming back. They were at the press conference. Man, if you can get Richie, it'd be tremendous. If you just lose Jackson, you lose Ali. I'm feeling pretty good. What percentage of the roster do you foresee Kevin Young retaining?
I think 75% is a really good mark to hit because of the splash of the hire. This is a guy that walks in the locker room day one and has already commanded respect based on what he's done in the past. And he's really not that old, sitting at early 40s. So he walks in the locker room. Everybody looks up at the guy who has been the lead assistant for the Suns, been coaching Kevin Durant and Chris Paul and Devin Booker, and says, you know what? I want to play for that guy, and it's not out of reluctance or I need to earn his respect or he needs to earn mine. No, that is from jump based on what he has done in his resume, what it is. The question that I have is which front does he start on? Because he's got a two-pronged effort. One is recruit his own locker room, recruit the guys that are in Provo and have been in Provo, Hall being the very first top of that list. And then the other is who's coming back from Mission, who is in the high school ranks, and how can you have one guy in Kevin Young in two places recruiting not just those who are already in the Cougar Blue, but the others who are potential prospects, because he's going to have to go to the portal and he's going to have to get guys that fit the culture. But that's, again, another thing that I love about this hire is he knows the culture. He's married in the church, and the guy is again so entrenched in what BYU's culture is that he is going to find culture fits when he inevitably has to go in the transfer portal and plug those holes. So while I'm interested how he recruits the locker room, I'm also interested on how he goes the two-front style and goes and picks up new pieces, because you have to in college basketball today. Today's show is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Monopoly Go is something I play because I'm competitive. I am known amongst my friends for being the guy who loves to win, and Monopoly Go allows me to win and compete against my friends. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. A great twist on Monopoly where you play not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building amazing cities that give you big money. But the best part is messing with my friends. The leaderboards show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. It's me. And I can also heist their vaults for the riches myself. But if you're not competitive, if you're a normal person, you can team up with friends to earn huge rewards. So get in the game, join your friends, or play against your friends. Download Monopoly Go now for free on Apple Store or Google Play. Download Monopoly Go. Play against your friends today. Play against me today. Lose against me today. Monopoly Go. Apple Store, Google Play. That's Monopoly Go.
No doubt about it. Drake Toll, Locked On Big 12, also the play-by-play analyst and voice of the Savannah Bananas. Love what you're doing there as well, Drake. But my final thing for you is this. You got to go out and you got to find some new guys, too. There's a few guys in the portal. You lost Colin Chandler, Kentucky. I don't know if he's going to be able to flip him. I think from what I've been told, Colin Chandler's a Mark Pope guy, which is interesting because there was a ton of rhetoric coming out when Colin signed with...
Wait a second, Ben. Who's Mark Pope?
Yeah, I don't know. In fact, I suffer from CTA. Did I say? Are we talking about the Catholic Church here? Or? Are we talking about Catholic Church? Is this the new Pope?
I know he did a lot of good things at BYU, but I do believe the lack of comment or even, almost an odd spurn that has come out of the camp, the Pope camp, since he left has been odd to say the least. And I wish he would have given BYU a little bit more of their flowers, but I can tell you he probably wasn't excited to see that he got replaced by the NBA's number one assistant. So I'll give Mark a lot of credit for what he did in the Cougar Blue, but man, wouldn't you just love it? The guy would say Brigham Young University one time since he left.
Yeah. Give me your outsider take on that, right? I think there's some BYU fans that are a little bit miffed about that. Yeah, I think it is what it is. I think there's some things that we don't know that, maybe if we did know, we would maybe forgive him a little bit. But that being said, your outsider's perspective on this.
Yeah, I've had conversations with those that, Ben, I'm sure you have had too, that are inside the program, around the program, that have talked. Maybe the right word to use here, appropriate, is tumultuous. There were some things that happened during the Pope era at BYU that didn't exactly fit the brand all that well and were never really smooth for both him, the locker room, and a lot of the staff. So it's not shocking now hearing those stories, the way that things ended and the lack of comment that Pope has made about his time at BYU. But I've got to note, outsider perspective, when he got the job, that was not a flash. The reason Pope has the name that he has is because of his college playing days. He had done nothing as a head coach to give you faith that he was going to lead BYU to NCAA tournament wins, which, by the way, he didn't. BYU took, in essence, a chance on a name that was now local at Utah Valley and a name that had existed 20 years ago in the college basketball sphere from what he had done under Rick Pitino as a player. So the chance that BYU and the athletic department took on him, you would think that he would give some kind of something toward that school, and he hasn't. Not saying you have to, but it sure looks weird when you don't, and it really looks even worse now that BYU got such a great hire. Today's show is brought to you by Yahoo Finance. Look, I am 23 years old and I am making money now, not a ton, but money nonetheless, and need to know how to spend it or save it or what I want to do with it for the rest of my life. And do I already put in retirement? I don't know, but Yahoo Finance does. I've been using it right now because it makes finances easy. Say an investment account with Schwab, a 401k with Fidelity. You can go to Yahoo Finance and consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access expert analysis. When it comes to financial futures, you think you've done it all. You've saved, you've researched, you've invested. Now Take those investments to the next level by using Yahoo Finance. For more than 25 years, it has been the brand behind every great investor. Seasoned investor or looking for new guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. A community of over 90 million users each month. Their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That is yahoofinance.com.
Last question for you, Drake Toll. Make sure you're all following him on Twitter, on X. He gives great content, very entertaining content on his platform. Now, what's the bigger goal? Kevin Young stated a few things. One that I don't think he outrightly, but his camp, I think, has talked about. They want to play in April. They expect to play in April, which means you're going to survive in advance in March Madness. What's a bigger goal, though? Getting to a Final Four at BYU or making BYU an NBA talent developer and getting guys in the league and keeping them in the league? What's a bigger goal, do you think?
Well, Ben, there's no secret. BYU over the last decade and even further has had few and far between NBA talent. And that's not a bad thing. You can go to different schools across, like even a Baylor where I graduated, and see the national championship hanging on the wall, but no NBA All-Stars to show for it. And I can tell you from that experience, who gives a darn, a crap, if you will, excuse my language, about NBA All-Stars coming out of your school if you're winning a national championship or going to the Final Four? I as a fan don't get to hang a banner. I don't get to wear the T-shirt that says that, oh, this player was an All-Star in 2026. We don't put those on T-shirts. We put national championship scores. That is what BYU is chasing under Kevin Young. And I do want to know, from his press conference, I thought the most, and people, I mentioned this on my show, people will overlook it. The most impressive part of it is the very beginning, Ben, where he starts listing family members that are in the audience. He gets all the way down to his nieces. How many press conferences do you listen to where the head coach has his nieces in attendance, because that is how rooted he is and his family is in that area? For those that said, Young is a great hire, but how long until he jumps to a bigger job or bigger opportunity in the NBA? His nieces were at the press conference. This is a family move. He's going to be there for a while. And granted, I do believe he's going to try to put guys in the NBA, but especially from that recruiting pool of guys coming back from mission, his goal first and foremost is to win a national championship at BYU, and he's got the pedigree to do it.
Love it, Drake. Toll, ladies and gentlemen, Locked On Big 12 and the Savannah Bananas. Drake, we salute you, we appreciate you, we support you. It's been a blessing to have you on our airwaves.
Ben, I'll be in Salt Lake in August, and I'm going to buy you a big fat steak.
Yes, let's go to Ruth's Chris. It's on me, my friend. You'll be in town in my home state. Okay, let me take care of you, brother. Can't wait to see you with the Savannah Bananas. We'll be supporting you here on ESPN 960.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you. Drake Toll, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, that was fun. Recorded from a car today. That's new, right? I have 5 bars. Can I complain just for a second about the Grand Canyon? I have 5 bars. And my campsite's about 0.2 miles from a grocery store. That's not camping. That doesn't feel like with the Grand Canyon. A really cool place, by the way. This has been It Always Will Be. Come back tomorrow. Let's talk a lot of football transfer portal because it's not looking great. Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Dose Grande.